السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد وفرقان حميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به وأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. وقال تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. صدق الله العظيم. فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that just as He has gathered us here today on this day of Jummah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us along with our families in Jannat al-Firdaus al-A'la in the companionship of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our last a'mal our best a'mal, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us from this dunya at a time when He is most pleased with us. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. For today's Jummah khutbah, I was initially thinking of talking about a social matter and a social dilemma that many of us are facing. But at the same time, keeping in mind that today is the first day of what we call the freedom of our children and the imprisonment of our parents, hence known as summer vacation. And I thought that today I just want to talk about this today, that what can we do in order to ensure that our children have a good and productive vacation. At the same time, as parents, what can we do on our end to ensure that we make the best of their summer? There is no doubt in the fact that for some families, this is a time to bond. This is a time for families to come together, to build up a relationship. But the reality is that for many parents, this is a very stressful time. And for many low-income families, for many single parents, it becomes even a more stressful time. The reality is, brothers and sisters, that if we fail to plan, as there's a saying, if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. Simple as that. We think that we can go into summer and let's just take 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time, and we fail to plan, not realizing that we're planning to fail. Our children are such, just like we were children one day too, our children are such that if you gave them no responsibilities, there is no structure to their summer, then they will love that. They will love that. We are living in a time that if you gave a child one room, unlimited food, a bathroom, and Wi-Fi for life, they will be happy. This is the reality that we're living in. So this is why our deen has taught us at all times that we have to create a balance. See, there are times when we have to keep the children occupied, and there are times when we have to give them some free time too, no doubt. And there are some times that they are going to remain bored, and that's absolutely fine. In fact, there are some psychologists who say that remaining bored in a situation where you're not stimulating your mind and your brain over and over again is actually beneficial to the human being. Why is it that we have to always stimulate our mind and our brain over and over again? So this is why there's a balance that our deen has taught. When we look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, is always about a balance. There was never a situation that someone can come along and claim or make an objection about the Prophet ﷺ that he lived an imbalanced life. Every single thing, from family to business to community to his responsibilities, there was a balance that existed in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. If we want to succeed in life, we have to strike a balance in our life. If we want our children to succeed, especially we want to make sure that their summer is productive, we have to make sure that they have a balanced summer, inshallah. So for this, there are a few things I want to share with you today. Three important things that inshallah I want to share with you today, that if we were to focus on them inshallah, then we will make sure and we will be able to make sure that our kids have a good and productive summer. The very first thing is the importance of taking care of our time. The importance of time, the importance of preserving time, the importance of looking after your time. Brothers and sisters, there is no doubt in the fact that while this is something that is talked about over and over again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also talks about this in the Quran. And not only does He talk about this in the Quran, there are few things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He swore upon. Allah does not swear upon every single thing, but when He swears upon something, it is so that you and I, we pay attention to that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, wal asr. When He swears upon time, that is so that you and I, we can pay attention to what Allah is about to say next. And then He says, innal insana lafi khusr. The ulama, they say that what this ayah basically means is that when it comes to spending time, utilizing time, majority of humanity is in the state of khasara. The majority of the humanity is in the state of loss. They waste majority of their time. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He swears upon this. Not only that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also talked about this in a hadith when he says, ni'matan. There are two blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maghbunun fihima kathirun minan nas, as-sihha wal faragh. There are two blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The most people, they underestimate the blessings and their virtues. And what are those two blessings? He says, as-sihha wal faragh. It is health and it is free time. When Allah has given you and I time, we utilize that in the best way possible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, when He talks about time, He says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Allah talks about those who are the believers. And then He talked about the characteristics of these believers. And then He said initially that these people have attained the highest level of success. How do we know this? Because at the end of the passage, what did Allah say? أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْوَارِثُونَ. These are the people who have inherited. Inherited what? الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ الْفِرْدَوْسَ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. These are the people who have inherited the Firdaus. They will be given Jannat al-Firdaus. And who are these people? The very first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. They are those that when they pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they are engaged in salat, they are constantly they're focused in their salat. Their minds are not wandering other places. And then the next thing He said is, Jalla wa ala, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Those who stay away from al-laghw. What is al-laghw? Al-laghw is anything that is taking your time that does not benefit you in this dunya or the akhirah. Now, what are those things that waste our time? What are those things that today our teenagers, our adults are wasting the most amount of time behind? Social media, YouTube, binge watching. These are things that people are doing so often. Not only that, I forgot one more thing, video games. Now, there's been a study, by the way, there's been a study that on average, every teenager, now there are some, I'm not saying every teenager in a literal sense, but when the study is made, it's made in a way that to give you a bigger idea and a bigger picture. The bigger picture is that on average, every teenager spends 4 to 8 hours a day. Okay, think about this. These are just some numbers I'm giving you. They spend 4 to 8 hours a day behind a screen. Whether it's video games, whether it's social media, whether it's watching TV, watching movies, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, whatever it is. They're spending 4 to 8 hours a day. Now you think about it for a moment, because this is where reflection is required. If a person is even spending 4 hours a day behind the screen, that makes up 28 hours a week. Think about that for a moment. 28 hours they have wasted in 1 week. If there are 10 weeks of summer, which on average there is 10 weeks of summer, that makes up 280 hours. They have wasted, by the end of summer, they have wasted 280 hours throughout the entire summer. That's a staggering amount. Just to give you more perspective, there was a person, there was a book I was reading, and in that book, the author, he was explaining that if you really want to gain proficiency in anything in life, you have to give 20 minutes a day to study that topic for 1 entire year. Okay? So 20 minutes for 1 entire year, that comes out to be 120 hours. If a person, now going back to that person who spends so much time behind the screen, if they're giving only 4 hours a day, they're still spending 280 hours. Not just spending, they have wasted 280 hours. In that much time, you can gain proficiency, a great amount of proficiency in not one field of knowledge, but in 2 fields of knowledge. This is how much time will be wasted if we don't plan out from before. Once again, think about this. Let this sink in for a moment. 280 hours in terms of days, that comes out to be 11 and a half days. Sitting down, doing nothing, wasting it. It's not like if you're sitting down, okay, you're bored and so forth. No, just sitting there, engaging in something that does not benefit you in this dunya, nor does it benefit you in the akhirah. So this is why, brothers and sisters, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears upon time, there's a reason why He swore upon time, because we are wasting so much time upon these things. The next thing that we have to pay attention to is what we find from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is being productive. The Prophet ﷺ, there was never a point in his day. Study his 24-hour life. There are people who have documented the 24-hour life of the Prophet ﷺ. And you will see that there is not a single time in the day where he has nothing to do. Every single time of the day, there is something for him to do. If it's after Salatul Fajr, there is some responsibility. If it's before Dhuhr, it's some kind of responsibility. If it's after Dhuhr, some kind of community matter. If it's after Asr, it's either his family and his children. If it's after Maghrib, it's his family again. After Isha, then he would generally go to sleep and so forth. There was never a time of the day where you could say that, you know what, the Prophet ﷺ is not being productive. So in order for us to be productive, we have to once again ensure that we are utilizing our children's time the right way. The best way you can do that is for parents. See, a lot of times we tell our children, go and create a schedule. To be honest, you cannot really be confined to a schedule, because the schedule can always change. The schedule can always change. So that is why I always recommend parents that you do not even write this yourself. Have your children write down what do they want to achieve in this upcoming week. Every Sunday night, sit down and tell your children, write down for me, what do you want to achieve this entire week? What do you plan on doing this entire week? Because the reality is, once again, our kids, if there's no plan in place, they will wake up at 10 o'clock. They will use the next 2 hours to do istikhara as to what to eat for breakfast. And then after that, they will sit there and they will not know what to do exactly in life. And then they will sit there, can I do this, can I do that? And they will waste their time. That's why, brothers and sisters, you have to tell your own children, you write down for me, you tell me what you intend to achieve in this upcoming week. And then what are you supposed to achieve this week? What are you supposed to do this entire week, every single day? Make sure that your children write them out, and you read about it, and you make sure that then they stick to that plan. Because at the end of the day, if you create the plan for them and you tell them what to do and they cannot do it, they will say, I cannot do it. But if you tell them to write it out, and you tell them that now you have to hold yourself responsible to this task list for the entire week, and then as a parent, then we are also putting that pressure on them, then inshallah they will take care of that. This is also a time that we have to teach our kids about the importance of good habits, developing good habits in life. Brothers and sisters, I've talked about this in some other talks. When it comes to our boys, when it comes to our girls, there are certain responsibilities that we should put upon them. There are certain responsibilities that we should put upon them, and let this be a time to build up good habits. Wake up for Salatul Fajr. When you wake up, make your bed. Most people who are productive in life, these are people who are authors and so forth, they will tell you too. They write about this in their book. The very first thing that you can achieve in the day is by making your bed. Simple as that. Cleaning up your room and so forth. These are things that are good habits that we have to use the time of summer to build this within our kids. And the last thing when it comes to being productive is try to find something in our society, try to find something in our community where they can go and do some volunteer work. Take them out of the house. Let them be around other people. Let them go and serve. If there's any kind of humanitarian work where they can go and even stack cans in a pantry. There are so many Muslim organizations that they are looking for volunteers over and over again. Go there. When they see other people who will come and who are in need of food, who are in need of the basic essentials of life, that is when they may begin to realize and show an ounce of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah has given us so much. It will open up their eyes. It will help them understand that life is not only about what I am related to or what I'm associated to, but there is so much more to life. But you have to take the kids out of their comfort zone and let them be in that kind of area where then they will mingle with others, and they'll be able to talk to others, and they will learn a whole lot more in life. So the very first thing was, once again, time. The second thing is that we have to make sure that we create productive kind of opportunities for our kids. The last thing I will say is this. The third thing is making sure that I've labeled this category as home. But what do I mean by that? There are a few things that we can understand. First of all, this is a really good time to spend some family time. Usually, when it comes to the masjid, parents come to the masjid sometimes at night, then they go back home, the kids are usually asleep. Now that the kids have to be a little more awake, and they can remain awake and so forth to a little later than their usual bedtime and so forth, then this is a good time for the family to come together. Sit down and engage in some spiritual kind of discussions. There is nothing wrong if you sit down and even have some productive dinner time where the phones are away, no one is distracted by the phones and so forth, and you sit there and you have a really good dinner. Just that in itself brings the family together. Then not only that, you can sit down as a family and go through some hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Go through, there are so many books of hadith that talk about, there are so many books of hadith that have a hadith specifically geared for children too. Sit down with your family, go through a hadith, talk to your children, talk to your teenage children. That is one time as parents, you tell your teenage children that you can do whatever you want, but at this time of the day, you have to be home and this is our family time. There is no compromise, there is no negotiation in this matter. You have to be here at that time. The teenagers also need to feel that just like the young children are staying at home and they have to be part of the family, the teenage children also have to feel that they are part of the family. So that is why that is the time where you sit down and you have a ta'aleem. Not only that, you have other discussions. The fact that Dhul Hijjah is coming up, Dhul Qa'dah has already started, Dhul Hijjah is next. Start from now to discuss Dhul Hijjah. What happened about Dhul Hijjah? What was the stories of Ibrahim alayhi salam? What are we supposed to do in the month of Dhul Hijjah? Start having that discussion now. The next thing that we have to also make sure that we do when it comes to our home and our internal affairs is that we make sure that our children are staying at home for the most part. Now let me clarify this. Our children have this nature nowadays that they always want to be outside the house. Staying at home is not a crime. In fact, a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, when that time will come, that whenever we go outside, we're going to face fitna after fitna after fitna. What do we do in that kind of situation? Because every time we go outside, we face fitna. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? The Prophet ﷺ said, stay at home. There is nothing wrong in staying at home. Now, yes, if your children want to go out, first of all, they have to be in the right company. There has to be proper supervision and so forth. But even if your children want to go out, no problem, but they cannot be out till late. Now, a lot of times, once again, we let our boys out till like 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. This is unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. And then not only that, but because the girls have been at home for such a long time, now you see the girls even now going outside till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, which is also unacceptable. So this is why, first of all, as parents, we keep the rules the same for everyone. Do not give your children, your boys, the liberty to come back at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you tell your children, your girls, that you have to stay at home after Maghrib. That's being unfair to your children. If you're going to create a rule across the board, but your children should not be out till late. Your children should not be out too late. And no one should say that, you know what, my children is the best. No, there is shaitan with your children. Your children are not Imam Bukhari and so forth. So that is why there is no need to have your children out till very late. Keep them inside the home. If they want to meet with their friends, let their friends come to their home and so forth. Do not send your children out, because though you may be a strict parent, though you may be an observant parent, not all the parents are the same. A lot of times children are smart. They want to always go to that person's house where they will find the most amount of freedom. So that is why, as parents, we have to try to keep our kids home as much as they can. Of course, create a balance in that matter. The next thing that's also very important during this time is, do not let your children have their own phones or their gadgets alone in their rooms. This is something that applies throughout the entire year. But once again, when you let your children be in their room by themselves, where there is no one to monitor them, there is no supervision and so forth, brothers and sisters, you're not doing your children a favor. You are destroying them. You are harming them. That is why, because it's not about them. See, we live in a time that they may not go to the haram, but the haram comes to them. This is the time that we're living in. This is what we don't understand. Yes, you may have raised your children in a very good way. Yes, they may not go to these kind of wrong websites, but when you're sitting on social media, when you're sitting on Instagram, when you're sitting on TikTok, these things are going to come to you. You don't have to go to them. That's the time that we're living in. So in order to protect our children, please make sure you're not giving them secluded time with the gadgets in their own privacy or in their own rooms. The next thing that's also very important when it comes to our homes is that if we cannot come to the masjid, that we make sure that we establish an appropriate time, the right time for each salat. This is the time we're going to pray Fajr. If we cannot go to the Masjid, this is the time we're going to pray Fajr. This is the time we're going to pray Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha as a Jama'ah at home. In this way, see, a lot of times people, you can ask one person, did you pray? Yes, I prayed. Did you pray? Yes, I prayed. Yes, I did not pray. But when the entire family comes together and you pray a jama'ah, it brings a family together. And the last thing that which is very important is that this is a really good time to teach our kids akhlaq and adab. Wallahi, I was sitting with a Shaykh just 2-3 weeks ago, and we were just talking exactly about this. The akhlaq and the adab. Parents, there are things that you would have never ever done in terms of akhlaq and adab. You do not even do in front of your own parents. Yet your children are doing that today is because there is no ta'aleem. There is no education when it comes to akhlaq and adab. Some of the things that I would never ever do in front of my teachers, today, those students of knowledge, they don't have that with their teachers. The way we would, the way I and many other colleagues of mine and people who studied in the same setting as I did, the way we would respect our teachers, wallahi, if I sit there and explain how we would show respect to our teachers and the way we were taught to teach or to show respect to our parents, many of the kids today, their minds would boggle that how is that even possible? But this is something that we are seeing, a decline in adab, a decline in akhlaq, a decline in just morals and etiquettes and so forth. Summer is a good time that when your children are close to you, you can teach them, you can educate them. And this is a time that where they are going to be with you. When they are at school, 8 hours a day they're at school. The other 3-4 hours they're busy doing homework. You as a parent, you're not able to give them time. But summer is a time where they have no school. That is a time where you can highlight their wrongdoings. And when I say highlight, mean that make them aware of it, but that is a time where you try to change those characteristics. Try to teach them adab, try to teach them akhlaq and so forth. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when it comes to our summer, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our summer a productive one for our children, for our adults. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for all the parents and all the children. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'an al-azim. Wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-hakim. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum wa li sa'il muslimina fastaghfiru innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Last thing I will say is that when it comes to these kind of matters, as I said, talked about time, we talked about being productive, and we talked about creating a wholesome home and house environment. The last thing I will say is that in order to achieve all these things, first of all, I would say that you have to sit down as a family. Husband and wife sit down, talk to each other about how to make sure that your kid's summer is a productive one. Once again, you don't want your child to spend summer and by the end of summer they have wasted at least 280 hours, and it can be more than that. You don't want to be that kind of parent who looks back and says that there is so much that my child could have achieved, but because I did not set them up for success, that is why today they're suffering. We don't want to be that kind of parent. We don't want to look back and say these kind of things. So that is why when Allah has given us the time, the opportunity, let's utilize the time and the opportunity in the correct way. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us barakah in our time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to be productive, just like we have seen from the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين في كل مكان اللهم انصرنا على من خالفنا واحفظ بلادنا وأصلح أولادنا واشف مرضانا وعاف مبتلانا وارحم موتانا وخذ بأيدينا إلى كل خير وعاصمنا من كل شر واحفظنا من كل ضير اللهم قسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك ومن يقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا ومتعنا بأسماعنا وأبصارنا أبصارنا وقواتنا ما أحيتنا واجعله الوارث منا واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا وانصرنا على من عادانا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا إلى النار مصيرنا ولا تسلط علينا من لا يرحمنا. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ورزقا واسعا وشفاء من كل داء. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن نفس لا تشبع ومن دعاء لا يستجاب. آمين رب العالمين. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. أقم الصلاة. Straighten lines, fill in the gaps. If there's any gaps in front of you, please fill it up. Brothers in the back two rooms, please make sure the rows are complete. If there's any brothers in the multipurpose hall, please make sure the row is complete. Sisters, please make sure rows are complete.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. The colors drawing lines from the gaps. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, tomorrow night we have a very important presentation, inshallah, after Salatul Isha. We had a survey done many months ago, talking about what would people like to see more in the community from an educational perspective, inshallah. So many people, they presented their ideas, their suggestions. As you know, alhamdulillah, we have a boys' school, we have a girls' school. The town hall is inshallah next week. But there is another demand that has come from the community, inshallah. So regarding that demand and how are we as a masjid, Epic community, how are we trying to now address that need of the community, inshallah. What more kind of educational programs we're going to be starting, inshallah, here at Epic Masjid, and the variety of educational programs. Inshallah, regarding that, we will have a presentation tomorrow night after Salatul Isha, inshallah. That presentation will not be more than 10 minutes, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.